Hey friends, now it's the time to move forward to next lab, which is lab number 9. But remember, in lab number 9 we have 3 different parts. So this is actually lab number 9A, which is implementing web apps. In this we are going to focus on web apps. So let's get started with this particular lab. Remember, this module is having 3 different labs. In each one we are going to see different platform as a service kind of a PaaS solutions. Let's start with the web app right now. The architectural diagram is actually somehow not getting loaded here, but if I focus on the skills right now, it's actually going to, let me reload this image if it works. Yeah, I think now it is loaded. As you can see in the architectural diagram, it is showing you that we are going to focus on task number 1 first, which is going to create an app service web app. Then you have a task number 2, which is going to create and configure deployment slots associated with that. We are actually going to create 2 different slots, production slot and staging slot. And then we are going to configure web application deployment settings, and then we are going to do swap the deployment slot. So basically a swapping of the slot and some external Git configuration, which we are going to do in this task 3 and 4. Finally, in the task number 5, we will focus on app service plan, where we can actually configure auto-scaling configuration vertically and horizontally. Basically, that's all what we are going to see in our implementing web apps kind of a lab. Let's get started with this. In the task number 1, we have to search for app services and we have to create it. I'm going to search for app services. This is the one which is available here. I'll click on create and I'm going to create a web app. While creating a web app, I'm going to choose the same resource group as usual. We are going to create a web app with a unique name, so we are going to provide this kind of a name. We do not want any kind of another unique code associations with that. We'll specify that the publishing mechanism we are going to choose is code. We do not want containerized deployment as of now. The runtime stack, you can choose whichever you want. We are going to choose PHP 8.2. And because of this, the operating system is also going to be Linux, because PHP works with Linux. We are going to choose a region, which is going to be East US. Default is Canada Central, which is given here. As per the instructions, I'm choosing East US. And I am going to choose my pricing plan, which is going to be Premium V3, P1 V3. So this is actually showing me P0 V3. We will change it to P1 V3, which is my new app service plan, which I'm going to choose. Remember, your app service plan is very important. When you are choosing the app service plan, you have to make sure that based on the app service plan, you are getting a desired features associated with that. Like if I go to my app service plan option, the one which I've selected is actually going to give me a elastic scaling kind of an additional benefit. It's going to give me up to 20 kind of a staging slots if I want to configure that, and it's going to provide all these additional features with that. I'm going to go with Premium P1 V3 as it is mentioned in the instructions. Zone redundancy, we are going to just accept whatever is by default, which is disabled, and then we are going to click on review plus create. Now this is going to deploy your web application with your app service plan. So remember, 2 things are actually getting deployed with this. One app service plan is also part of this thing. Let's click on create. And once the deployment is started, it's going to take a few minutes to deploy this. So we'll just wait for the deployment to complete. In my case, I'm getting some error here. Now this is something which is a very common issue which happens with the lab environment. This is showing me that this particular one is not according to the validation procedure. This is something which is maybe because the region has quota of 32 instances kind of thing. So this is maybe a region issue. When this kind of thing happens, you have to go back to the basics. And in the basic sections, you can just change the region. I'm not going to keep it East US now. Let me change it to Central US, and I'm going to keep it with P1 V3 as it is mentioned. And I'm going to click on review plus create. Suppose if this is not going to work in East US and Central US, you can try different region, or you can try changing this app service plan to some smaller or cheaper app service plan. Depends upon your subscription, you're going to get the associations with that. Now this is an expensive app service plan. You can see it's going to cost me 124 USD per month. But yeah, mostly if it is not working in East US, it will work in Central US. And that's what I have done right now. Let's wait for this deployment to get completed, and then we'll move forward. My deployment is complete. Let's click on go to resource. As of now, if your web app is created, when you click on the default domain, which is actually your basic URL of your web application, it's going to show you this kind of a dummy page. So basically, it's just a dummy page which is showing me that my application is up and running. Let's move forward to the task number 2. in which we are going to create and configure a deployment slot. In my case, as we said, the default domain is the one which we have checked and it's showing me a new website which is actually deployed there. Now let's try to configure multiple slots so that we can publish a code into that. In order to do that, I am going to click on deployments, and then inside the deployment we have deployment slots. Remember, as per the app service plan, you will be able to add multiple deployment slots. I'm going to click on an add slot with the name staging. I'm going to create a new slot. And while creating a new slot, you can actually provide a configuration if you want to clone any settings from your production environment. By default, the root URL is configured as a production environment. As of now, I do not want to clone anything from that production web app. So I'm just going to choose do not clone settings, and I'm going to click on add. Technically now I'm going to have two different slots, one staging slot which I have added and one default production slot which is always there. Now it is done. You can see that I have two different slots visible. We have a production slot and we have a staging slot. The production one and staging one both are running, but 100% traffic of the user is actually redirected to the production one. So as of now, no one is having access of my staging slot. If I click on the staging slot, it's actually going to take me to a separate section which looks like a web app, but this is basically a separate slot which is configured with this. If you check the URL of your staging slot, it's going to be a different URL compared to the production. Like the production one is my web application name .azurewebsites.net, while this one is actually going to have a separate URL with the word staging associated with that. So this is a temporary URL, but as of now both are configured inside the same app service plan as a separate slot. Now, once we have this thing, let's configure a web application deployment settings association with this. In this case, we will go into a deployment centers. So let me go back to my web application, and then we have a section called deployment center. And inside the deployment center, actually, we have a configuration which is called settings. So remember, you're not going to go and click on this settings, which is available on the left side. You're going to click on deployment settings, and then you're going to click on settings. When you do this thing, we have a source configuration here. In the source configuration, we can actually configure and connect with any CI/CD kind of an integration. You can use DevOps, you can use GitHub, you can use your own choice associations with that. I am going to choose in the source configuration that this is going to be an external Git, which I want to use it here as a manual deployment. When I use external Git, you can see that it's asking me in the repository field that which repository you want to associate with this. I'm going to provide the URL of this repository, which is one of the hello world kind of an application on PHP created by Microsoft in this case. And then in the branch field, we are going to choose that it is going to be a master branch. As of now, when I try to save this, you can see it's showing me one error. It's showing me that SCM basic authentication is disabled for your application. So click here to go to your configuration settings to enable that. Now, this is something which is one property which you have to enable if it is not done. Let me click on this, which will take me into the configuration section of this particular app service only. And inside that, I have to enable this basic authentication with SCM. You can see this is turned off. I'm going to click on I'm going to click on save. Once this is saved, it's updated. We can go back and we can do the same configuration in the deployment center. Yeah, this is done. I'm going back to deployment center. This time it's not going to show me any error. I'm choosing same external Git repository, master branch, everything else is set. And with this, we are just going to click on save. Now, as of now, we have done this configuration in our web app. You can see right now, this is something which is configured with the web app. So if this configurational changes are happen here, you can go into the default domain. And this time the default domain is actually going to show you an updated application association with that. Now in our case, this is actually taking some time because just now we have pushed this thing. Now it's going to take some time to configure this thing. Now when we go to the default domain, this should have a newly updated code based on that application. In this particular steps, they are actually asking us to do this thing in the deployment slot. So when we have done this thing, they're asking us that you can just configure that you are on the staging slot blade instead of the production slot. So basically we have to do this thing in the staging slot, then only this is something which is going to be updated here. But intentionally I did this thing in my production slot first to show you that this can be happening in any of these things. Now my real production is actually having hello world kind of a configuration here, and my staging one is still not having that thing, so it's just going to have some dummy page which is configured here. You can do this configuration in staging slot or in the production, whichever you want. and then you have to swap it so that new changes are going to be swapped from one stage to another stage. Now let's try to do that thing. In my case, I am not pushing this hello world kind of a configuration in my staging. I'm doing it in the production only. So this is one particular change which I'm doing in my particular configurational step. Now let me go back to the swap deployment slot kind of a section, which is task number 4. So I'm going back to my deployment slots. As of now, hello world is available in production and staging is not having any kind of a code inside that. What am I going to do? I'm going to click on the swap configuration of this. So I'm going to click on swap, in which we have to choose our source and target. Basically in the staging one, we have that dummy page which we are going to push into the target, which is our production now. I'm going to click on start swap. And when this happens, as of now, this is the staging one which is having dummy page, while this is the production one which is having hello world is actually going to get swapped. Once the process is successfully done, you can actually do reverse swapping also if you want, or you can do other configuration associations with that. Let's wait for some time. Once this is done, we are going to verify that the production web page is going to display hello world, but in our case it's going to be reverse. In our case, staging one is going to display the hello world and the production is going to display this particular page, which is actually a dummy home page. Swapping of the slot is successfully done, as you can see here. If this is done, let's refresh the browser pages. This is my staging one, now it is having hello world, and this is my production one, now it is having the dummy page. Remember, anytime if you're not happy with the swapping, you can again go back to this, you can click on the swap, and you can try the reverse swap also with this, and that's going to work the same way as it is. Once we are done with this, in my case, I am going to focus on task number 5, which is configuring a taste auto-scaling of the Azure Web App. In this case, we will go into the scale out option of the app service plan, which is available here also. So if I go into a section which is app service plan, and inside this, if I click on app service plan, and if I go into a configuration of that, we can get this option. Otherwise, in this case, you can actually get this thing in the left side section also. So under this settings configuration, you'll get something which is your scale up and scale out. And these two settings are actually part of your app service plan only. We are going to click on scale out option right now, because this is going to be a horizontal scaling where you can configure multiple instances of your application with that. I am choosing my scale out configuration where I want to make sure that we are going to select automatic scaling, and in that also we are going to configure the rule-based configuration option. I'm going to choose automatic, which is here. And you can see below that we have a rule-based configuration also. When we click on rule-based configuration, rule-based scaling can be configured for a different application metrics. Now when we do this thing, in our case, we are going to specify automatic, and that is something which is here. And then exactly after this is asking me that what kind of a maximum burst field you want to select. By default is 1. We are going to change it to 2. And then it's showing me always ready instances, how many you want. By default is 1, so we are okay with this. Basically, this is going to create one instance, and then it's going to be maximally going into the 2 instance kind of a configuration. That's what we are doing here. I'm going to click on save. You can see scale out application is actually successfully done. If this is done, we can actually check this thing by going on diagnose and solve problem. Now this diagnose and solve problem is something which is going to be available in the left side section. Let me search for this. I can find this here, diagnose and solve problem. When I click on this, it's going to allow me to configure a load test for my application. So when I click on this, there are different options which are available here. And inside this, you can see you have alerts, you have configurations with this. I'm going to focus on this part, which is load test your application, so that we can understand what kind of a load test configurations we can do with this. Inside this load test configuration, I'm going to click on create. We are going to specify some name for this one. So let's say we are going to give a name like Maruti load taste 1. Anything is fine. The region for this, we are going to choose, I think, Central US, because that's what the region we have selected for the app service plan in this case. And then we are going to click on review plus create. All other configurations are fine. It's just a simple load test creation which we are doing right now. After this, we can add a configuration inside this. So we'll click on create. Hey guys, sorry for interruption. My name is Maruti and I'm here to make a very important announcement. I hope you are liking our videos and you're doing a continuous learning with us on an Azure cloud and AI related topics. If you are enjoying this thing, I'm going to announce SkillTech.club, which is our upcoming website, which is going to be launched very soon. We are here to tell you one thing, that everyone who is a subscriber of this particular channel will get Azure Cloud and Azure AI related certification courses free of cost in SkillTech.club. So you will be a part of the SkillTech.club kind of a membership automatically free of cost. And everyone who's a subscriber of this particular channel will get those benefits which are available in that. So what are you waiting for? I request you to please subscribe to this channel and share it with your friends and families if they are also interested in Azure Cloud and AI learning. That's it from my side. Now you can carry on with your learning. Thank you. Okay, my deployment is completed. I'm going to click on Go to Resource. Inside this Azure load testing configuration, we can actually create by adding our HTTP request, and we can select create. So let's just go into this one, create by adding HTTP request, and we'll click on create. This is my test plan configuration with this. In this case, in the test description, we can put anything. So we are just going to keep it blank. Then in this case, it's showing me run test after creation. Yes, I want to keep it like that only. Then we are going to specify the URL field, which is going to be associated with our default domain URL. Now I am going to provide this untick configuration here. It's going to give me a test URL. So let me just take my test URL of my Azure websites. I'm going to click on copy. I'm going to paste it here. This is my default domain of my website. And then when I'm dealing with this, you can see that it's showing me that you can just click on review plus create. So this is something like we have pasted the default domain URL, and then it begins with HTTPS. Yes, of course, it is there. And then we can just select review plus create. Now by default, it's actually going to add some virtual users, and you can see in the configuration, it's going to have number of virtual users will be 50. The test duration will be for 20 minutes. Now, if you do not want to wait for 20 minutes, you can reduce it to whatever time you want. Let's say I'm going to keep it for 2 minutes only. And then ramp up time is something which is going to be 1 minute. I'm going to keep the same configuration like 2 minutes kind of thing, and then I'm going to click on create. Now, logically, we should run a test for 20 kind of a minutes so that the scaling is going to be working and it's going to increase the instance. But because it's a lab environment, I'm not going to wait for 20 minutes, and I'm not going to wait for scaling instance to be increased with that. But this is how we have to configure these things. Now, when we do this thing, this is all configuration which we have done. If anytime you're not happy with this, the test which is running right now, you can stop the test also by clicking on this button, and that's what they are showing you in this instruction also. In our case, once your test is successfully executed, basically the load testing is going to give you the load testing results, which you can analyze, and according to that, you can configure your scaling in your app service plan. We are going to wait for this test to be executed and completed first, because we have done this thing only for 2 minutes, and then we'll analyze the result, and after that we are just going to end this lab. So this is how we have configured our web app, or I can say app service, which is more or less the same thing. Let's wait for a few minutes. It's going to be running and completed. Just now it's showing me the test run has started. Live metrics will be available very shortly, so let's wait for this. Optionally, you can click on the engine health and other tabs to analyze if it is showing you something. Okay, as you can see, this test run is actually successfully executed. We do not have any errors inside this. The duration was actually 2 minutes and 5 seconds. The load which they have sent total request is, you can see too many requests are there. And then if you check the graph here, it's going to show you the metrics. So the virtual users are 50, number of requests they have added into that. The response time was also visible here. It's going to be responding in few milliseconds only, so that is something which is working fine. We also have requests per second kind of a thing, which is going to be 1.5 thousandths of requests per second is what we have sent into this one, and this all working fine with this. Now this means that my application performance is going good. Now logically, when you execute this load test for 20 long minutes, and in between if this kind of requests are actually coming, you can focus on the instances also of your application at that time, that if it is scaling according to that or not. Now this is how we have to check for the application scaling, and then we have to continuously monitor that. When you have this kind of a test cases, remember, you can go to this test and then you can check what details are required for this particular URL specific test. Now, as of now, we're not going into those details. This is it for this application. I hope you understood how this app service and app service plan with deployment slots is going to be configured. That's it for this lab. Let's move to the next lab of module number 9.